From Copenhagen tonight, an arrival that symbolizes both diplomacy and defiance. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has landed in Denmark for a series of high-level talks. The images may be brief, but they speak volumes. Officials standing ready at the runway, a leader stepping into Europe's northern stronghold, and a flag in the wind that says Ukraine's fight is not confined to the battlefield. As he steps off his presidential aircraft, Zelensky carries with him more than luggage. He brings urgency, expectation, and the weight of a nation at war. Denmark has been among Kiev's most reliable allies since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion, sending weapons, financial aid, and political backing. But this visit signals a new chapter. It is not only about Danish support, it is about forging a united northern bloc of solidarity. On the tarmac, Zelensky's handshakes with Danish officials may look routine, but in the language of diplomacy, every handshake counts. Denmark sits at the crossroads of the European Union and NATO, and its influence stretches beyond its size. For Zelensky, this welcome is proof that Ukraine's struggle resonates deeply in capitals that understand both Russian aggression and the fragility of European security. And then the image of the Ukrainian flag fluttering from the aircraft window, a fleeting shot yet layered with meaning. Flags have long been tools of defiance and pride. Here, it is a reminder that Ukraine is not merely a guest in Europe. It is a nation fighting for its place within it, fighting for sovereignty and survival. But this stop is not limited to bilateral talks with Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen. Zelensky will also convene with the leaders of the Nordic-Baltic 8, or NB8, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, Iceland, Latvia, Lithuania, Norway and Sweden. Together, these nations form a crucial northern arc, a wall of democracies facing Moscow's shadow. Their histories of resistance, occupation and survival shape a shared understanding that Ukraine's war is their war too, fought on their flank for their future. Behind closed doors, discussions are expected to revolve around weapons, training and the reconstruction of Ukraine's devastated towns. But energy security, sanctions and NATO's northern posture will likely dominate the agenda. For the Baltic states especially, who live under the daily pressure of Russian proximity, support for Ukraine is not charity, it is self-defense. For Denmark, this visit builds on months of military assistance, including advanced systems and training programs. Frederiksen has often been outspoken in her support of Ukraine, framing it as both a moral duty and a strategic necessity. By meeting Zelensky here in Copenhagen, she underscores Denmark's commitment to a long fight, not a fleeting gesture. Diplomatic observers stress that Zelensky's presence comes at a delicate moment. Across the West, fatigue has begun to set in, elections shift priorities, economies strain under inflation and energy prices. Yet for the NB8, the stakes remain immediate. They know what it means to live in Moscow's shadow. They know that if Ukraine falls, their own security could be next on the line. In this sense, Zelensky echoes wartime leaders of the past, like Churchill crossing the Atlantic in 1941 or de Gaulle rallying allies during France's darkest hours. He understands that presence matters. To be seen is to remind allies that the fight is not abstract, not distant, but urgent. By arriving in Denmark, he ensures that Ukraine's cause is not relegated to conference papers or policy debates. It is living, it is urgent, and it is standing on European soil. The NB8 support carries more than symbolic weight. Finland and Sweden's NATO membership has redrawn the alliance's northern map. The Baltic Sea is now largely ringed by NATO states. Iceland and Norway provide critical Atlantic links, and Denmark, seated at the entry to the Baltic, bridges the alliance with Western Europe. Together, their coordination becomes a deterrent force, one that Moscow cannot ignore. As Zelensky enters these meetings, the cameras will not capture every discussion, every document signed, or every promise made. But they capture something perhaps more important, the optics of resolve. The images of officials waiting, of handshakes exchanged, of flags waving. These become part of a broader narrative Ukraine desperately needs, a narrative that says Europe stands together, that Ukraine is not alone, and that diplomacy remains as vital a weapon as artillery. Tonight, Copenhagen is more than a capital. It is a stage. The city hosts not just a leader at war, but a coalition of neighbours bound by geography and by the conviction that Europe's future is at stake. For Ukraine, the trip is a lifeline. For the Nordics and Baltics, it is a duty. And for the world watching, it is another reminder that the war is far from over. And so, as President Volodymyr Zelensky settles into his talks here in Denmark, the footage of his arrival will join the archive of this long and grueling conflict. Small gestures, fleeting images, officials on a tarmac, a leader stepping off a plane, a flag in the wind. But each image carries meaning. Each symbol becomes part of the fight. Because in this war, survival is not only about holding territory, it is about holding attention, building alliances, and keeping hope alive.